Welcome to the Rooted Remedies podcast. I wanted to welcome you, obviously, and say thank you so much for sharing time with me. I just started this project, so I appreciate anybody and everybody who's willing to give me a little time. If you could, let's start with a little background of yourself, how you came to where you are now, and yeah, let's go.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Hannah, and I was born in Maine. I grew up in the woods in rural Maine without any kids to play with, and then had just a blissful childhood and ate food from the garden. And my parents were have always been pretty health conscious. Oh, and then over the course of my life, gradually I became more urban, eventually living in Silicon Valley with my former husband. And so I've seen a lot of different parts of the world. I've done a lot of different jobs. I really like to get a high overview of how our world operates so I can better navigate this reality. And I did about 13 years ago work in the medical industry. I traveled around the world setting up distributorships for a surgical table manufacturer. So I learned a lot about modern medicine, in particular, that realm, which is the last resort of cutting, in my view, is ought to be the last resort. And I became really exhausted with the greed and seeing, corruption and seeing people just get rich off of other people's suffering. And that was very eye-opening, because I was traveling to lots of different countries. So I got to see what are the different medical systems in each country, who are the people making the decisions, how did those decisions get made. They would openly talk to me about bribery and things like that. And woke up to a lot of that. And given that I'm always been such, someone that was oriented towards natural solutions, there was a part of me that was like, this is so weird. Why am I taking this job, following this path? But I love to travel abroad, and I love meeting other people from other cultures. I speak French and Spanish and Greek, and so I really wanted to do, like, job that would allow me to travel around the world and go to huge trade shows and meet lots of people that wanted to carry the products. So I grew a lot in that regard, in that I very familiar. I also had other jobs. I actually worked as a debt collector when I was in Maine, finishing my degree. After I'd met my husband, we went and were living in Portland, so the city in Maine, and I was, okay, I'll get my degree. I need this to get a job. And I was kind of forcing myself to do the whole matrix reality, if you want to call it that, of just the standard, like, what's the path that you're supposed to take.
Right.
After resisting and trying to find other way, and then kind of feeling lost, and I was like, okay, I'll go back to doing what everyone else is. So anyway, at that time, at that job, I remember just thinking to myself, I was like, I need to be on the opposite end of this rainbow, where we're working with preventative medicine to where people get better before they even know anything is there. And so that was when the vision sort of started, because at that time, working with devices and training people, training salespeople, training service people, and being technical to where I could assist, support calls if people call me if something simple, like, they didn't plug it in and the battery died over 8 months because they weren't charging the battery, and they just, they need to buy a new battery, something simple like that, to more complex issues that I would still be kind of translating, or I'd at least be kind of following it. So, things like electricity and hydraulics and all the, different parts, and, uh, you know, just all these kinds of terminology and all that. So I said, oh, I'm really good at tech, I'm really good at learning technical things and explaining them to others in simple, easy terms that they can understand. And the other thing was that I learned a lot about teaching, because if you're giving a day long or day and a half training seminar on something like surgical tables, I mean, talk about what seems like it could be the most boring thing in the world, right? So I would have to get creative. How do I get them to, like, hear what I'm saying, And I found asking questions to the audience was a really helpful way, because people need to, their brain, like our beingness needs to crave the information. Really, we have to want to find truth, to seek it out, and it's great when someone just delivers it at our doorstep, but typically that's because we prior put the intention to want to learn about something like that. So anyway, I learned that asking
Amen.
people, and what's that?
Amen. Amen. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's like our consciousness will only be ready to accept information if, our subconscious will protect us. This is my perspective, that through my experience is that I had to be ready, like consciously, before some certain subconscious awareness came to the surface. And there would be ways that you test yourself. That's been my experience. It's like I'll see an image of something, and then how do I respond to that? It's like, what am I thinking? And then something happens, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that image in my mind's eye. And then that was my subconscious testing whether I was ready for this thing to happen. So um yeah, so fast forward about 3 years ago, my life shifted 3.5 years ago, June 2020. A lot of people, everything's shifting, and a lot changed. My partner and I realized we were on separate paths. I bought a van in California. I drove it to Maine. I had a childhood memory come back, some very paranormal experience. It's a whole other topic that on my channel I do. One of the recent episodes was going into that experience, and that shifted my whole view. And I started to basically get into the whole. Well, the memory that came back, I'll just fill in the blanks because it makes more sense. I was abducted when I was 6 years old by Grays, and had that memory came back in full, like watching it like a movie play in my mind, because I accidentally hypnotized myself.
Ooh.
So my sister had done a quantum healing hypnosis therapy session. I was listening to her session. I was like, oh, I'll just sit and meditate. It's a nice guided meditation. And then before I knew it, it played back, and it was like, it changed everything. So my family didn't know how to help me with that experience, and my partner too. That was part of how our paths were diverging. So I said, I need to be around other people that this has happened to, or they know about this. They're not going to think I'm losing my mind. And I sought out an event out in Washington State in gorgeous nature, and went in a month after and saw all kinds of craft in the sky. Had my first Sasquatch encounters there, which I didn't
Wow.
even know Sasquatch. It was like, really? These are real too? It was like that came right with it. It was like a package deal for me. It's like, okay, you're getting into the whole alien UFO world. And it's like, by the way, this is real, and this is real, and all these other things are real, time travel, teleportation. It's like everything we've watched, vampires, right? You're like, what? People drink human blood? Why would they do that? Oh, that thing that they told us is just a story. What? Okay. But that's all shifting now, thank God, on our planet, and we're putting an end to all that kind of stuff. It's already shifted. With the work that I do, just a side note, and then I'll wrap up my background. The work that Alas and I are doing at the center, so I helped her get a healing center started in Palm Harbor, 7 miles north. I'm here in Dunedin, Florida. It's on the Gulf Coast. It's
Sorry,
in
where did you
Tampa
say?
Bay.
Where in Florida?
Dunedin.
Oh, I don't know.
It's a Dunedin. It's a small town. It's just north of Clearwater.
Oh,
Clearwater.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
It's right. We're right next to Clearwater is like a mile that way, and it's the Tampa Bay area. And so I came here wanting this house that I bought to be a healing sanctuary for people to come and try this technology. Because once I tapped into the whole UFO crowd, I really started to learn about lots of advanced technology, and working with frequency and sound and light, and yeah, orgone and lasers, tachyon, scalar energy, and all these terms. And so I bought this house, and the goal was people could come here and try all these amazing devices, um, the silver, like, it's a pad that goes over your mattress, and it's got silver wires embedded, and you literally plug it into into the wall, and it taps into the grounding wire in the house to ground you while you sleep with this. So there's such amazing technologies that are already here now. So yeah, so about 3 years ago I started to learn about all this stuff. And then so along this process, as I learn, I find what I like. But for me, it's so important to given that I have that technical background, and I'm also very, I got really into things like coding,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
behind the scenes, how is this stuff working? So if I find a technology and it's great, but they're not going to tell me what it is, it's like, I love it and I might still use it, like this crystal powder that this company makes that I really love, this crystal powder. But it just says minerals. They don't tell you what frequencies are. It's all proprietary, and I'm like, okay, I get it. But, for me, it's about tapping into how that's going to specifically work with my body. If we can see these things in our mind's eye, then we're activating it with our consciousness in a much more profound way. That's my perspective anyway. To know, some people, they don't really care. They don't want, they like, as long as it works, they don't want to learn. Maybe they're like, you take care of that. So when I found Dan's, material, Dan Winter, and then was learning, okay, he's got the Therify and the Quantify, and okay, what's all this about? Then I started to really deep dive into his work, and then I clearly saw that the Therify was on the path. And once I was like, okay, how can I purchase one of these and start working with this and show people this? So I figured out a way to make it happen. And then every time I made a step, I mentioned this in the call we did the other day. Every time I would make a step, like reaching out to him for the pricing, or sending the down payment, this kind of thing, then my timeline would shift. It would be like I would have a huge amount of energy, and I would be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it was like I was just being so precise and so, intentional with each one. And then I flew out to California to try it in Mount Shasta. Eddie Sharpless has one that he brought to an event. Rob Potter does an event every year that's very connected to Venus and Venusian energy. And it's an amazing event, amazing energy out there. But I had already decided to buy it before I even tried it. That's how strong I knew.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I'm kind of going on and on and on about all of this, but I want to make
Oh,
sure
it's
that we
fine.
talk
You're
about
fine.
what you want to.
No, 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 please. It's perfectly fine.
Okay.
I do believe that there is people connect for a reason. And while I may have a direct, okay, I saw you talking about this and I want to address that, I have zero reservations about
Nice.
it going anywhere. Of course, I think it's a bit reductionist, but
Mm,
I think, yeah, I think we are all
mm.
energy and just light trying to mix and
Yes.
I'm stacked light,
Hmm.
as they say.
Yes, it really is. And yeah, back to the work I was doing, we do at the Center with the Lhasa, is I spend a lot of time there volunteering, and we just hang out and make crafts and talk. I mean, it's just fun. It's just um it's important work, this healing work, and the emotional aspect of doing meditation and looking for what wants to come to the surface, what event from our childhood, where someone, like the example we did the other night was a time when we didn't get what we wanted, right? And it was something maybe that would have been good for us. And it was maybe a parent, like Alaska's example is her dad didn't get her the bike.
Right, right.
Um, but we can go back and we can, literally, if there was a time that we were sad or someone made us upset or whatnot, and we and say, gosh, I wish I would have done this in that moment. We can literally go back to that event and picture the way that we prefer it to happen and focus on that. And we rewrite the story. We literally rewrite the story. And if we really want the new story to be true, and we can even make it funny. My example, because I figured this out on my own totally independently, like at least 5 years ago or more. It was, oh, my grandmother was brushing my hair really hard and it hurt. I was playing with my friends. She's like, oh, your mother didn't do your hair. And she's like upset about stuff in her own life and kind of taking it. But I was like, why do I want to keep this sad memory alive? And so I said, okay, well, next time I'm going to say, no, I'm working on my white girl dreadlocks, and then I run off and play with my friends, and I don't let her take me to. I don't let her fix my hair. I'm like, no, I'm having fun playing, and I say something funny, and she's just stunned, and she's just like, oh, just moves on with her day, and it's like she has a much better day because she, you know what I mean.
Right, right. A couple things.
And then it's a funny thing. So then when I think of it, I just laugh because the silly, fun, funny memory has now, it's more enjoyable for me. So then that overrides. Because why would any of us want to keep any of the sad memories around, you know?
Really quickly, how in the event of, I mean, it must be the same when you lost someone and you want to replace that. I mean, have we gotten to the point where that person can reappear?
Well, so this is where understanding the physics of our reality comes in really helpful because we have, there's two types of waves if you were going to look at electromagnetic fields. So
Yes.
there's two types of waves. You have transverse going up and down. Yeah, if you followed Dan's work, then you're already familiar with this. Transverse waves going up and down like a boat on the wave. The boat is going to move up and down as the wave passes. So picture energy moving in one direction, and as that energy moves, it's designed to spread beingness around us. You know, there's a role for each one. So you have these transverse waves going up and down, but then we have longitudinal wave, which is a pressure wave, meaning it pushes like this. And the direction of the wave is the same direction that the energy is moving. So now when a person dies, they're not really dying. Our souls are eternal. So really what they're doing is they're squeezing all everything they learned through this life, they're all of their beingness, they're vortexing it down, or they're compressing the information of their beingness and all the experiences they had in this life, compressing all that information down to Planck so that their consciousness can vortex through our, like a node in our reality, like a node, like a point where energy lines cross. So this is what we do. If we can make ourselves very small, that's why Buddhist monks meditate on their death for years so that they have a successful death. If a person has a traumatic death, that's when you have things like ghosts, because a part of their beingness didn't get squeezed through the array, through that nodal point, through that Planck point of compression, because anger doesn't pass through death. You don't bring stuff with you when you die. And, because really there is no death. It's just transitioning to another plane of reality. Mm-hmm. Personally, when my grandparents died, I have now a closer relationship with them because I'm dealing with them in that way. So it's very close and intimate. So it's enhanced my relationship with them. And I've definitely gone through heartbreak. I had two dogs that I had adopted, and with my work, it was clear that they needed new homes. And I still have moments where I just miss them so much, and it's really hard. And being married for 15 years and then that relationship ending, that's really, really, really hard. And it's really, really hard for sure, because we love that physical closeness. That's part of the fun of being human. But if we can see the bigger picture and know that they're right here with us, and anytime we want, we can feel their presence, they have the ability to do that now. It's like we can see, like, wow, they have superhero abilities now, or they're like in this other form now, right? Um, and some people don't want to hear it. They prefer to be sad, and that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
um, I I have an aunt, and she's very sweet and so much loved her father, my grandfather, and we all really did. Such a wonderful man. And I tried to talk to her. I said, he's here with us, and he wants you to know that.
Yeah.
But I just got kind of the blank stare because, again, her consciousness probably not ready to open for her mind to be open to all of those things being real. It's a big jump because then someone might be learning a lot of truth at the same time related to something like people dying. But things like meditation are really, really good. Just even if it's just sitting in a chair in a quiet space, you don't have to be in any kind of special pose. It's really just quiet time to be with your own energy. And the more we do this, the better we get at quieting the mind, then we are then able to connect our consciousness to the larger array, you could say. Array meaning some people, it's helpful to have this word sort of clearly defined. An array is sort of like a group of items. Like if you have an array of colors, you have like a range of colors. So typically when we talk about the array, the longitudinal array, we're talking about all of these longitudinal waves that are all around us that are intersecting in these nodal points. So we can to those nodal points, that means we can make our beingness, we can compress all of ourself down to the tiniest point of Planck, which Planck is the smallest unit of measurement in the universe, Planck length. There's also Planck time and Planck energy, and there's a fourth Planck that I just learned exists.
Hmm.
So when we can make, and what does it mean to make ourselves very small? For me, it means tapping into the authentic part of our identity, our core beingness that is connected to the 0 point, the 0 point field, the quantum field. It's like we're all just this one consciousness of creator, this one infinite creator, that this great I am the creator, source creator says, oh, I exist, this is amazing. But everything is peace, everything, this is a little boring. Like, this is great, but it's a little boring. Like, let's do some stuff.
Yeah.
So how about and this is actually my first book that I'm writing for children. This is how it goes. It's source saying, I exist. Wow, that's wonderful, but I'm all alone. I'm all one, but I'm all alone, right? All one, alone. It's the same except for one L. So it's one to be alone. So instead of being alone as all one, consciousness says, well, I'll split myself into infinite little pixels of consciousness. So I consider myself a tiny individual pixel of consciousness that is part of this infinite, great, massive source, creator, God, some people would say. For me, it's the same as love. So you have your pixel, and that's your connection to source. That source fractaling out to become Ethel through this tiny point in the heart, the portal in the heart. This is my view of it. So you're fractaling out in every moment to exist as Ethel, to do stuff. Let's have fun as source, as this I am. Let's pretend we're something called a human, and then we're gonna pretend there's something called, like, oh, I'm upset at that person. It's like, I'm very upset at you, and it's like, oh, I'm upset at myself, So the more we can see each other, and a lot of the work we do at the R3 Miracles, that's the Healing Center in Palm Harbor that also runs, it's all self. So why am I creating this for myself? Can we put ourselves in that viewpoint of the other person, of the object, of the reality, because it is all us. It is, and I like to tell people it's like,
Record.
okay, back to what I was saying after a little bit of a technical rearranging going on here in the ether. Typically, it really is, we've had ghost thumbs up numerous times when someone would say something profound and then it would be a little emoji thumbs up in the there. Okay, maybe it's is Zoom have something where it's detecting my thumbs up and then did you see that?
I
It just
never
one just
saw-
popped up.
Oh,
One
I
just
saw
popped
it.
up when I did it. You saw it, right?
I
So
saw
maybe it's
it.
something if you hold the thumbs up, it there it goes. Okay. So okay, so I was because we have things like that and we're like, what is going on? But yeah, there's a lot of because once we're tapped into the highest good for all, and we want the Christ consciousness to be our authority. And for me, you could also think of Christ consciousness as all of this sacred geometry around us. And Dan did a talk in Fractal U. The first talk that he did, it was about the science behind Christ consciousness. And really, what that means is that when you are of that vibration, you become you have a more profound effect on all of the reality around you, and it's very visible. And then people start to adjust to your energy because you are, we emit longitudinal waves. Some people call them scalar waves, but more precise word is longitudinal waves that I was describing earlier. Pressure wave, a pump wave like this, like a tsunami going under the ocean really fast. That's a pressure wave, or sound is a pressure wave. So there's many names. So longitudinal wave, it's also called a compression wave, a pressure wave, or a pump wave. So part of what I'm doing as I'm learning this material and teaching it to others on my channel in my attempt is to teach it in ways that are very simple and easy to learn. Dan might talk, for example, Dan will talk and he'll use all these words and people are like, what is all this? I don't know. It's so confusing. But through my experience, a lot of times these words are synonyms for one another. When you're talking about charge collapse, that's neg entropy. It's not something different. Negative entropy, this bringing chaos into order. And that's the same as, charge collapse. That's what we're talking about, but maybe talking about it on an electrical field term versus,
Yeah.
so anyway, so yeah, so back to what I was saying though, with the hand on the table, and everyone agrees that this is swirling protons and neutrons and electrons. So we know it's all energy. And then at that level, when everything is just protons and neutrons and electrons, it's pretty neutral. You're not saying like this is a good proton or a bad proton, it's all just energy. And so even if you just want to look at things on that level that regular folks will agree with that statement, then we can see in our mind's eye, this just swirling energy all around us all the time moving. And what is the flow of that energy? We are surrendering, we have to all the time to that flow of energy. But because this is a planet of free will choice, it's a unique situation here. Not all planets are like this, or, so if you want to look on a cosmic scale of what's going on in other realities and other life and
Yeah, I'm also
existence,
into Waldorf biodynamic agriculture. And so I know, even though I can't prove it to you, right? There is no way that there aren't cosmic influences in the way we produce our food and in the way we interact with light.
if
And
you've done biodynamics, you see that firsthand.
yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah,
the
mostly,
cycles. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And so what I
Mm-hmm.
feel, just to give us a little, I feel when they're in the case of our children, in the case of dental health, which again, we don't have to stay there. It's just kind of like the lighthouse, shall we say. Disease arises, and you can look at it in multiple ways. Is it a messenger of something? Or, you can look at it, I guess, in the 3D plane, which is like there's something wrong and I have to fix it. And I do feel that. And I feel that
Brilliant.
that's why I feel so drawn to what you're sharing and Dan obviously and all that stuff because there is more to what we
That's
experience.
brilliant. And that is the work that we're doing at the center that is really essential. You can't have one without the other. We can change our diet and start running and stretching and do all this stuff, but without that emotional healing component of the deep trauma, generational trauma, it's not necessarily even something that happened in our life. It just got passed on through our DNA. So absolutely embracing everything in our life, taking what is the deepest, darkest challenge that we're going through in any moment. And do we have the courage to say, I love that this is going on?
Hmm.
Because with the wisdom that knowing that we wrote it for ourselves, all of it, we're creating all of it all the time from the pineal, projecting this reality out. It's a actual physics, there are physicists that have written formulas to prove this holographic universe theory that they have. I love combining the science with the spirituality. This is for me, it's just the funnest ever.
Yeah.
So it's not woo to say, that we can manifest what the life that we want. No, that's this holographic universe, everything inside of us, all this swirling energy inside of us is a mirror image of what is outside of us, and it's incredible. And then the more we do that practice of loving, I'll give a great example because right now I have a um, drain that is clogged with remnants from making juice because I started making this delicious organic juice and bringing it to the center with little jars to share with people. It's all organic and everyone's really liking it. Then it's wild because the house, I almost had a gag reflex myself. I was like that feeling because the water with the beet juice had started to ferment. And so it started to smell like alcohol or kombucha or something. And then I'm troubleshooting. I'm like being powered. I'm gonna fix this myself, And so first it was like, oh, I gotta find someone. I gotta call them and spend a bunch of money. I'm like, okay, well, let's see if I can do this. And so I've got the snake, and I'm currently twisting the snake in a little bit, pulling out the core, emptying that out, and like this is a big clog. Simultaneously, I'm healing the energy of the house. And it's literally what we're doing. And I was doing this in France, especially at the end, right before I left, about a month ago. When we have metal in the ground, in the earth, and we have these pipes and plastic pipes, and we have, things like that, it's just hard for the energy to move in those areas. And the energy wants to move in harmony around our whole planet. So when we identify an area of the house, of the land, of the property where the energy is stuck, we can do things just with our intention, but sometimes it is a physical thing. Like I might, the house might be calling for me to come and put crystals in there or something, because now that I've become so sensitive to energy, I can sense on the electrical field level that the energy in that area of the house, because it's in the same area, you have the kitchen sink and the drain, and you have right next to it, you have a bathroom with a toilet and a sink and a shower. And then on the other side of the wall, you have the patio with the spigot that goes to that I use for the pond and watering the plants. So you have this cluster right there of a lot of water moving through it. And when I was in Mount Shasta, there's the headwaters of the Sacramento River are right there in a beautiful park, and it's a spring coming up, and people go and fill up their water containers, but plenty of people sit and bless the water. They sing to the water because this is, probably I think the most people in California, the source of their drinking water is coming from this one spring. This is the origin of that water flow, of that vibration of this body of water vibrating together. So I was there, and right next to that spring is a fire hydrant. And my eye kept going. I kept thinking I was seeing a little boy every time I walked by. And I'm like, this fire hydrant wants love.
Yeah.
And then when I thought about it, I said, yeah, because the water is constantly just being stuck there and stagnant. There's water there that, and so, and we have metal, and metal has, steel and aluminum, they have a low dielectric constant. So the energy is having a hard time. If we could replace that, for example, with glass, and I think actually that's a good, actually, I'm not sure about glass.
Yeah.
Intuitively for me, glass feels better. Um, but materials like wood and certain metals like titanium, or gold, or silver, that have a high dialect. There are metals that have a high dielectric constant. So if that fire hydrant was titanium, I think I would feel better. But I think we would all feel better, right? If all
Yeah.
of if all of this metal was magically replaced with titanium. Anyway, so I started to put flowers. It just felt like it wanted love, and I started to make it like an altar. And it just, when I go to these places, and even here in my own life now, it's more of just automatic motion of like our bodies then just start to want to clean the house or want to, create an altar here. It's just going with what wants to happen. Just take the pine cone, just place it right there. That alone, that intention, because then everyone walking by starts to see, oh, look, that's so cute, the little fire hydrant with all the flowers around it. And then they started to put things down, and it was a beautiful work of art. And then my one friend Q Mars, who's up in Shasta, he's amazing. Q Mars, I love you. He also spends time in France and Spain, so he was probably there in the same area as me when I was there. It's kind of fun. He's a beautiful soul. So he was telling me, because he spends a lot of time there too in that park. He goes, people were praying to it. They were using it as an altar to do this. And I was like, that's great, because that was a place where the energy, so if we can at least assist the energy, okay, you can flow here up around the fire hydrant, and the energy says, thank you, okay, there's more harmony now, right? Because everyone's then going and giving their intention to that area. So it heals it. Really, pain is broken fractality. That's all pain is. So we can look at it at like a mechanic. You're bringing your car to get fixed at the mechanics. So we say, okay, my energy body, where does it need to be healed? And because when we have trauma in our past, from our past, or genetic trauma passed down, or maybe even something from a past life, those wounds stay in the energy body. So that we can receive the gifts of the learning that they have. They're going to stay there until we're ready to receive those gifts, until
Mhm.
our consciousness is ready to rise and be like, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, I understand now. And then forgiveness of the people, that, my grandmother she was clearly carrying a lot. And she was very, very sweet and cheerful and sweet, wonderful, talented, beautiful, amazing woman. Um, but there was a lot there of, alcoholism, her father struggling with alcohol, and maybe fighting about money from her parents, right? And then so coming from maybe a background where money was scarce, and then coming into, my grandfather was successful and they did very well and whatnot, but it was this sort of polarity in her life, and maybe that was stressful, right? And so but how can we heal that? Because then when we heal something like that and say, I forgive you, it wasn't your fault, you were just acting unconsciously from some pain that got passed down, then all the ancestors that might have taken part in whatever that trauma was that got, they can all rest, their souls rejoice with us, because talking about death earlier, and when people pass, they're then assisting us, right, from those higher planes. I mean, they're glorious. They're in their magnificent. They get to be the appearance they want. When I see my grandparents, they're young, they're beautiful, they're so loving. I'm like, they're radiant, they're angels, right? And
Mhm.
it's a side of them that I didn't get to meet as a little girl. That's why I feel like it's an opportunity for the, when if you're willing to tap in and try to feel their energy. And I see birds, whenever I see two, especially if it's two goldfinches, then that's really, but two birds together, especially small birds, will typically be my grandparents coming through. It's happened numerous times, especially when I needed guidance, and that I knew that was them there. But anyway, so my grandmother now, it's like, how can I be mad at her now, right? She's passed, right? So why would I want to sit around and be like, oh, she did that? She's not even here anymore.
Yeah.
And it's the same. Like, I like to picture everyone on the planet is inside, everyone's just a little baby, right? And it's like, if someone's like, oh, that person, they shouldn't have talked that way, and I said, she's just a little girl. Like, can you just picture an upset little girl that you're trying to comfort? And then you shift to that. And then we can be like the bigger person, so to speak, because we can be the adult, the mom or the dad for the person in the moment that they need us to be, and be our own parent, first of all, first and foremost.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but and on that note, because I know you were interested in the children's book, my goal, because so many people, as I started to learn this physics, and it's revolutionizing my perspective on reality in such a great way, and I'm having so much fun, and I feel like a kid again. Like, this is the stuff I always would have wanted to learn. I would have loved to learn this as a little girl. So it's like I get to pick up wherever that left off, wherever fun learning stopped becoming fun. I get to pick right up where I left off in school with the math and science. Like, now that's all fun again for me, because it's really a whole new branch of science for all of humanity. So, wow, like, not only do we get to be kids in science class again and having fun in math and science because it's actually applicable to our real life, we are explorers for humanity. We are discoverers. Dan has found all these frequencies that align with his Planck fire formula. And just in case anyone watching is unfamiliar with the Planck fire formula, you basically take Planck, the tiniest unit of measurement in the universe. All physics is measured with Planck. It's the musical time signature of our universe. And then you multiply it by golden ratio, which is also a known constant. Planck is a known constant. Golden ratio is 1.618. And that's the sacred dimensions that all these temples and churches were building. So this is ancient wisdom, this ratio. And there's a lot to that I could go and do. But you take the golden ratio and you raise it to the power of any integer, any whole number integer, 0, 1, 2, 3, on infinitely. Each time we do that calculation of Planck times golden ratio raised to an integer, the resulting number is like a magical frequency in our reality.
Mm.
So whether you use it for light or sound, right, or we're building according to these proportions, we start to tap into the magic fundamental on the tiniest level. How is all of this reality being created? We're going down to that tiniest level, and then we're building big structures, for example, a house or an office, where people work. We want them to feel great when they're in the building. Well, we just mimic the tiny scale, the tiny level. What's going on in the tiny level? We just build the same thing, but on a larger level. And we're getting ready actually here in a couple months to do a sacred geometry building project of a star mother, a large wooden star mother, to
Beautiful.
do exactly that. And then the star mother is like the scaffolding infrastructure all around us. And then what we can do, we don't have to, there wouldn't be room to like live inside a star mother, right? If we wanted to build a star mother house. So instead, what we can do is we can use those lines within all these vertices and all these lines within the whole star mother pattern, which is, well, I'll explain that in a minute. It's like the scaffolding, and then we can just choose which lines do we want to build along, so it can be whatever sections you want. It's like you just reach in and take out, okay, we're gonna have a nice little cozy room in here, but this wall is along
Right.
these
Right.
lines. And what the star mother is so that's the dominant sacred geometry all around us. And it's first I'll explain the platonic solids just in case anyone watching needs that background. So the platonic solids are, again, all the building blocks of our reality, all the molecule, atoms and molecules, they're taking this shapes, the platonic solids. And then we layer the platonic solids from there to get this bigger infrastructure. So You start with the tetrahedron, which is 4 sides, all triangles. So if you picture like a pyramid, 3 sides on the top, 1 side on the bottom. So that's a tetrahedron, 4 sides, all pyramids. Then you have the cube, excuse me, the hexahedron, which is a cube, 6 sides, all squares. So cube. So you have the tetrahedron, then you have the cube, then you have the octahedron, which is 8 sides, all triangles. So if you picture, 2 4-sided pyramids, one on top of another, one going up, one going down, and that's an octahedron, 8 sides. So the platonic solids, every side is the same dimension, the same shape. So that's what's unique about these 5 platonic solids. So tetrahedron, cube, octahedron, and then we have the dodecahedron, which is 12. Dodeka in Greek means 12. These are all from the Greek,
Origin. Yeah.
numbers. Yeah. So dodecahedron, 12 sides, and those are all pentagons. And that's when it starts to become more sphere. As the platonic solids, as you increase the number of sides, it becomes more of like a sphere. So you have the 12-sided dodecahedron with pentagons. And then you have the icosahedron, which is 20 sides, and those are all triangles. And each of those align with a different element. So icosahedron, 20 sides, all triangles. So now the star mother, the pattern of the star mother is you start with an octahedron in the center. So that's like the seed. And so then around the octahedron, you have what's called a star tetrahedron, which is where you take 2 tetrahedrons and you have one going like this, and you have the other going like this. And so it's like the Star of David, the 6-pointed star, when that's what it would look like in a 2-dimensional perspective. So you have the octahedron in the middle, then you have 2 tetrahedrons surrounding that to make a star tetrahedron. Star tetrahedron is also called the Merkaba, which people talk about the Merkaba, everyone having their light body, their Merkaba, right? So this is talking about the sacred geometry of our light body. So we have octahedron, star tetrahedron. Then we have the cube around that. And so now cube is 6 sides. So if you have a crystal like quartz, this is just a side note. If you have a crystal like quartz, hexagonal, cube pattern of the quartz crystal, that's the limit of that sacred geometry is cube. So that's an important note. There's a lot to that. Okay, there you go. And quartz is great. Don't get me wrong. I love my quartz. I love amethyst and citrine and whatnot. But just pointing that out because we're overcoming a lot of issues on Earth, or we're moving past that realm of where 6, the cube, Saturn, this, influence of control on humanity as being like a slave race, or that's all gone now, right? But the hexagonal structures were used to keep humanity in that mind control framework. Yes. What's that? Sorry.
Subjugated.
Yes. Yeah. So that's important because people get very excited about, for example, the Vogel crystal, but it is quartz, and also there's issues with the facets are not properly aligned to generate the longitudinal waves. It's something people get very excited about a certain person, and they did this crystal, it's so amazing, but he had blind spots. And when people really, what it is it's just going beyond the hex, right? So it's allowing our consciousness to know there's more, there's much more. That's what we crave. Right. We crave embedding into the larger array to where our aura becomes massive, right? So okay, so that's quartz, which is great, but I like selenite a lot because it always keeps all crystals clear all the time. And that's because it's shaped like pyramids on a molecular structure. So I'll have quartz, but now I always have the selenite with it to keep that quartz pure and clear all the time. Okay, so back to the star mother geometry. So then after cube, hexagon, hexahedron, you have dodecahedron, 12 sides, all pentagons, and then you have icosahedron, the 20 sides, all triangles. And then again, you have dodecahedron. Dodeca, icosa, dodeca. Those are the last three layers after the cube. And there's stellation, there are connections between. It's not just these floating shells, right? There's lines, energy lines connecting the nodes. So anyway, so that's the Star Mother. So we're going to build a big one out here. We're going to have a 5-day workshop. We're going to have a 2-day workshop, and then we're going to have a 5-day workshop here. That's more of like a kind of, all right, let's do like a real big project here that's going to like really impact the planet. The work we're doing is grid work, working with Therify at the Miracles, the R3 Miracles Center in Palm Harbor. Every time we turn it on, a stargate is being created where, you have basically, I'll just briefly explain how the Therify works. You have 2 glass tubes. So a person will lie on a massage table and they'll have a sealed glass tube. It's shaped like a flask, but it's on the side. And so that tube, they'll have 2 tubes, and these tubes are filled with noble gases, which if you look in the periodic table, the noble gases are very fractalic in nature. They have that dodeca, icosa, dodeca aspect of the Star Mother in their atomic structure. So because that's in their atomic structure, then they're very changeable, they're mutable, they're noble, they're royal. I'm beginner learning all this, so please excuse my shallow description.
No.
Okay, so the noble gases get activated with 500,000 volts of electricity, and then they start to glow pink and orange and purple because of the plasma being generated in these glass tubes. And then there's infrasound. Infrasound is just really low sound. It's low, so we can't hear it. It's outside of the human auditory range. They're the very low frequencies that we can't hear. So that's what infrasound, INFRA. So infrasound frequencies are being input into the plasma so that, okay, and then here's where the Planck fire dance formula comes in, because which frequencies do they use? They use the Planck fire formula and put in a whole range of integers. So you have a range of frequencies. It's an array of frequencies, a range, a whole series. And so in the past, scientists would be like, it'd be like looking for a needle in the haystack. They'd be like, oh, I think I found one, right? And they would get close to one, but they didn't know the exact number. Now we have the formula, we can calculate the exact frequency. And also they couldn't adjust it. They didn't know, because they didn't know the formula, they randomly found one, but they wouldn't know the prior one in the series or the next one. Now we have all the frequencies mapped out. And this is where, with Dan's work, he's shown how, if you want to use Planck time, the same formula, but look at Planck time, that's how you calculate the Earth year, how many days it takes for us to go around the sun. It follows this formula. And also, the Venus year, it's not quite, but it's very close. It's slightly, there's reasons why some of these things were adjusted. The pyramids were placed where they were to work with the longitudinal arrays of our planet, and the Schumann resonance, the Schumann frequencies are almost aligned to this formula. The energies of the Earth, they're very close, but they're slightly off. But it was designed that way to be able to take into account certain earth features or whatnot. There's a reason for it of why it's not exactly aligns to the, but it's close enough to where you can tell. And so back to what I was, we were talking about children and teaching, or I, telling my friends like, hey, I'm learning this stuff. It's so fun. It's so great. And then I'll watch people's blocks come up. The word physics, that's really hard. And that's what really smart people do. And I'm not smart enough to do that. So I'll watch their, oh, I'm not good at that. I'll hear the comment or I'll see in their eyes and say, no, this is different. I promise this is fun, and you can, and it's so simple. I'm like, multiplication and exponent. It's all you have to know. And you can make your own calculations. I mean, it's incredible. And so that's why I decided to do children's book because, if I could teach this to children, then all the adults around me, all my friends and family, they have zero excuses because, if I can teach it, there's a 13-year-old boy in France, and I was like, oh, do you want to learn the formula? And he's like, okay. I was like, oh, get a pen and paper, and we just sat down and with a few of his family members, and I taught all of them in 10 minutes, and did little drawings, and he got it right away. He was like, yeah, I know that. As I'm teaching him, he was like,
You got it, yeah.
because people sometimes they're humble or they're shy or like, oh, not humble little me. Oh, little me, I could have possibly, right? Little old me, what? This
Yeah,
is
I find I'm really motivated to learn with my child. I know she's kind of
mm,
young, but I personally, I'm just like, yeah, we're gonna
good
do it
for
all.
you.
We're gonna knit. We're sure. We'll watercolor.
Yes.
I
And
have
we
an
can,
artistic background, but I don't know how to knit. And I'm like, okay, I guess I have to knit now. So here I go.
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And we can even teach things like math and science through the knitting, through the patterns. You could, I love there's knit and purl, right? And then each time like the seed stitch when it goes knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one. So and it creates these little nubs. So I bet too you could even create the pattern and then you knit the pattern, but it could be I just did a painting last night at the center, just painting on this tube. I just felt really called. I was like, I need to put some sacred geometry. And then for me, it's a joy. Okay, what wants to come through? Because that's the joy of spontaneous art when you don't know what you're going to draw, and you just, what do I feel like drawing right now? And it's like just one little idea, and oh, then I'll have it go like this, and I'll have it go like this, and then you're like, oh, look at what I just did. So, but it was the 7 directions. So you have 2 lines like this. If you're looking at a 2-dimensional, like, painting it on the ground, I'm going into taking 3D and we're trying to bring it into 2D representation, literal alchemy that we're doing. So you could even just draw this with your child. It's like the 2 lines going up and down, and then the diagonal line to represent the forward and backwards. So we have the up, down, left, right, and then that diagonal line, because if you were looking at a 3D object, from that perspective. So I just saw like a knitting pattern in my mind's eye showing the 7 directions like that as you're.
I
My
let her play
mom's
with an
knitting.
abacus. It's not exactly knitting, but I let her play with that and
Oh,
see.
very,
So I'm
very
wondering
cool.
I'm wondering if there's more that can be done in that way too, with a little.
That's a great idea. I think I'm gonna have to order one of those for the center because I've never played with one of those, but I think that is gonna help us tap into the patterns of the numbers. Very cool. I love that. That's great. Um, yeah, so I'm also doing a workbook together with the children's book that will have activities like this, of where it's an art project like a snow globe, but then they're going to go out into nature and they're going to find what are the little objects they want to put in their snow globe, and it's going to be all natural, because we're
Beautiful.
going to talk about, well, what happens if the glass were to break? What would happen with the liquid, and where would that go? Would that go into the earth? And so we can avoid little pieces of plastic, because what's going to happen to that, right? And we start to just be zero waste society, teaching our kids and working with the net. And it's also healthier for them. It's safer for them. It's healthier for us. If we, in Maine, a lot of my family, they have wells. all their water is well water. So if you have something like you're putting paint in the down the drain and it's going in the septic system and then it's going into the groundwater and then your well's right there, it's a very closed loop system, and you can very clearly see how we want to avoid putting any chemicals in the ground because this is the water we drink. So if we can shift things like paint, we use only natural paint. There's really great limestone paint and clay paint, and this company called BioShield. I did see that their clay paint does have potassium sorbate, so it does have a small amount of a preservative. I'm gonna call and be like, hey, is there a way can you at least make my batch without it? And hopefully, or so just like really, but there's got to be some other natural substance that can be used in
We've
place
been
of that.
doing finger paint with pudding. So just
Oh,
vanilla
I love
pudding and then adding color and then
it. That's brilliant. Then it's like too,
totally edible.
oh, what a great, oh, I gotta tell Alexa that I can see her doing that and then we can use things like beet juice and I've been using the blue lotus flower.
Oh,
It's gorgeous blue. Yeah, this tea, really relaxing tea.
it's
Then
my
we can,
favorite essential oil. My favorite.
oh my gosh. I got a sample of that a long time ago in a very small, but I didn't know anything about the properties of it. And I was doing natural organic perfumery at the time. So I was more looking for the scent of it, or that was
Right.
the context it was introduced to me. So it didn't even occur to me that it was also an herb, like yeah, blue. I love that. That's great. Yeah, I've been bonding with that flower in the last couple of years, big time. It came into my reality in a big way. The flower of intuition, and it's powerful. That's so great. I love that. So yeah, the Fibonacci, that's another great activity to do with children in nature. Let's go, count the rows of pine cone. What do they call them? There's a name for those. The seed husks on the pine cone, each
Uh-huh.
little, or the flower petals. How are they growing? And seeing the Fibonacci, because the golden ratio, the Fibonacci is the whole number version of the golden ratio. It's essentially the same thing. And I did a video dividing the Fibonacci sequence numbers by each other, because each time you divide them, you get, and as the numbers get bigger, as the whole numbers get bigger in the Fibonacci sequence, it becomes closer and closer to the golden ratio, becomes more and more precise. Yeah. Because if you take it, just real quick to go over what the Fibonacci series is, because even me, it's like I'll put this stuff down and then it's like, okay, what is this thing again? Um, so Fibonacci series is basically how this whole reality is created from, if you want to think of like 0 and 1, like something and nothing, right? Of polarity, black and white, just like computers, everything is made with zeros and ones. Everything, colors, words, all of it is made from zeros and ones. You're like, that's amazing, right? How is this happening? Um, because the computer world is really just mimicking our reality. Yeah, protons, neutrons, right? Positive charge, negative charge, and this whole reality just comes from that. It's pretty incredible. Um, I totally just lost my train of thought now. So the
Fibonacci.
activity book, Fibonacci. So we take 0 and 1 and we get all the numbers in reality. So, and all of this creation. So how does that happen? 0 and 1. Okay, so you take those two and we're just going to add them together to get the next one. And that's how we're going to create this whole sequence, right? Which describes our reality. So 0, 1. So you add them together, you get 1. 0, 1, 1. Okay, now we take 1 and 1. We're going to add those to get the next. 1 and 1 is 2. We've got 0, 1, 1, 2. Now add the 2 and the 1, and we're going to get 3. Okay, we have 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. 5 plus 8 is 13. 13 plus 8 is 21. and on and on and on and on it goes. And so that is essentially the same as the golden ratio, because it's nature. You want to have a whole flower petal. You don't want to have a half flower petal, right? So you want to have a, like, so this is how nature, I suppose, approximates. This is how nature works with the golden ratio. It kind of like rounds up or rounds down to create the whole flower, or the whole flower petal, the whole leaf, as opposed to 1.7 leaves.
Right, right.
Right. Yep. Actually have a graphic. I could just grab it on the
Yeah.
fridge if you want to wait 1 second. This was actually one of my favorite videos that I ever did. I just had a really good time doing this video. So you can so you see in the middle there, it's just two squares right
Uh-huh.
there. So it's like zero. We have zero squares, and then we have one square, and then we do zero plus one, and then we have one square. And like each square is like one pixel, I would say. You want to call them pixels. The length and width is one pixel. And then you see this one above it, well, that's two. So the length, the sides of the square would increase. And then you see this one here, it's 3 by 3. And so, and then you orient the squares in a spiral. So this one is 5 by 5. And then this square is 8 by 8. And this square is 13 by 13. And this one's 21 by 21. And then when you have your compass to draw the spiral, what you do is, okay, let's see how I can, if I put my compass, the point right here, I just draw the arc from this corner of the square to this corner. I just draw the arc like that. And that's how you get the golden spiral. Just keep drawing each arc, and then
Wow.
it gets bigger and bigger. So that's a fun, I'm really looking forward to doing that project with kids so that they can, when you can create the golden spiral on your own pretty easily, then it's like you're really tapping into all these seashells that are growing that way, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so fun. Yeah.
And I call it if you don't soften to experience the subtleties, you will never experience them.
That's really,
Yeah.
I
And so
love
that's
that.
that's kind of my drift right now with I again, she's only 3, so it's preschool type situation. But
Oh,
but I
oh, she's
I'm
only
looking forward,
3.
yeah, I'm
Wow.
looking forward to all of this because
Yes.
you have to inspire the wonder and
Oh,
amazement and yeah.
yes. I've started to get to know children that have really been nourished on all levels and supported to be their authentic self. And it's really incredible because you can speak to them, on the same level as adults, essentially. And good for you. That's amazing. Yeah, to really raise evolved children and evolve as we're doing so that we can learn and grow and get to, like, I think when I see people having kids, I'm like, oh, how fun they get to go through all of, like, this learning again and like learn so many more new things ourselves, because learning really is a lifelong activity. It's joyful activity. It's fun. It's meant to be fun. And I think bringing that joy back into learning is one of the most important and fun tasks that we could possibly do right now. Good for you. That's so great. Yeah. Yeah. And connecting it to the topic that you cover, I feel that this discovery of the plank fire formula is like really one of the most profound discoveries ever, ever, ever. And that happened because there was other work done to support Dan to make that discovery. It's not like he did everything on his own. He learned from a lot of other people and put pieces of the puzzle together to arrive at that solution. But this formula describes our whole reality, and just every material that we use to build the cars, the streets, our clothing, everything is going to shift to be able to take advantage of what we know now, because now we can measure the frequencies of a laptop, say, for example, and learn, okay, we can actually create a more healing laptop that's gonna it's not going to overheat, all these upgrades, because we're more aware now of the fundamental layer of reality of how it's operating, with everything being plasma vortexes. So this awareness is going to shift every aspect of our reality. And I guarantee you there's lots of health discoveries that are going to happen, but I really love that you are covering, the whole dental, like the mouth care, because there's something to do with, I think, empowerment and the mouth. It's a very vulnerable area, actually. So, and it's speaking, right? Our words, right? And so I think that part of the agenda that we're overcoming now is already basically washed away, and we just need to build the new solutions, right? That whole thing was basically to silence us, right? And the same with like the masks and whatnot. It's like, if they're trying to and a lot of people having a lot of throat issues, it's like, if we have something important to say, they're like, oh, don't let that person talk, right? So I love this focus, and it's been an important focus in my life, and envisioning all my teeth and gums and jaw and everything really healthy. Because what what happened to me in that realm is that I had great teeth my whole life, but then I went to a dentist, and it was like they are looking for things to be wrong, right? And so I feel like what it is how we're going to need to upgrade that whole healthcare system, is to see everything as healing every time. Everyone getting better all the time. We always see the outcome we want in our mind's eye. There is no like, what did the doctor say is going to happen? Like looking to the doctor to predict the future. No, we choose reality, because one of the reasons learning the physics has been very empowering for me is because we can tap into these theories and formulas that have been written to prove how our reality is being generated moment to moment, every moment. Like, it only exists when and where we need it to exist. Otherwise, it's not even in existence. Only if a conscious human is there to learn and grow, then all of a sudden, oh, there's flowers and trees. Like, this is the reality that we're living in. So when we see the reality, and I did an episode on that too, they have this thing called the many worlds interpretation. It's a physics theory that says there's infinite parallel universes, right? And we choose, oh, do I want to be in this one, or do I want to, this one's like right next to it. So it's like imperceptible, right? Passing between, you're not going to perceive it. But if there's one way over here, and you're like, because it's basically frames. It's sort of like we're in this 3D movie, and every moment is a frame in a 3D movie, literally. And they can measure gravity waves, because the gravity waves, this is all this plasma vortexes around us all the time. Every moment, each of our body has measurable gravity waves, so they can like use the device and take a snapshot of your gravity waves in any moment. And then they can take a snapshot of the room and the time. Everything is like specific gravity waves that describe that place and that time and that location. So because, so you can measure these things, but we're doing it all the time by saying like, oh, I really like spending time with the lake. I like, hanging out on the dock and sitting in the sun and chatting with my family members, the lake up in Maine, where I grew up, and we bring food down, we have our coffee, and we just sit in this glider, this swaying couch, and we enjoy the sunset, the sunrise, and the waves. And the more I see that and picture it in my mind's eye, the more likely I am to find myself, oh, look, oh, someone's like invites me to go to the lake, and oh, maybe it's not exactly that memory, but it's like something like that, you know what I mean? Or we picture whatever environment we want, and then our our compass of our world line trajectory, where are we heading? Okay, I want a reality where I wake up every day and then I do this and I walk out onto my balcony and I open the doors and the sun's there, and like every day I can do that, and I get up before the sun so that I can see the sun coming up, and I have my coffee and I sit it on my little deck, right? So I can set myself up to experience that reality by visualizing it in my mind's eye, and continually like confirming those aspects, continually powering that battery so that reality can come into existence, because that reality is already in existence. It's just our consciousness is like surfing the many options, the many paths that our choices can bring us every moment. There's just things are shifting all the time. It's like, do I snap my right finger? Oh, I'm gonna snap my left one. Like two different realities, or I don't know.
Yeah. No,
It's
I got
wild. You get what I'm saying? So the reason why I bring up the gravity waves is because that's describing the actual technology to actually build a portal. Like there's people that have put
that
this
was my
stuff out.
question. I was that there
Yeah.
must be a way to calculate that and kind of set it as the destination. That's the one I want to go to.
Yep. I
Guessing.
did. Yeah. I did an episode. It's like a many worlds interpretation, how to create your own reality, how to steer your reality, I think is what I titled it or whatnot. And that one felt like a really great episode to put that information out there, because I was talking about both the technology. There's a guy named Metallic Man, and he was former Majestic. He lives in China because he's gone through a lot because of the way the program, they just kind of they want to really control those people so that they don't talk about what they went through. But he lives in China. He's created a website where he's put a lot of information. He has a DIY dimensional portal page that you can go to. It has all
So much
the
husband.
metallicman.com. So I went and learned, but it's cool because he walked that, he guides people through the reality of that theory, and how we're doing that all the time just with our human body. We don't need necessarily the portal to do it. Like, yeah, that'll be great, like when that's here, but we can, we can just start with our own abilities, because like that's the whole thing is humans, if we remember like how powerful we are and how what amazing creators we are, like our ability to sit down and do a drawing and do a painting and write a song, and like this is unique, this ability to tap in directly to the source, this source connection into our heart, you know not again, not, this is very special. This is just like the most special part of us, like in our heart. And it's like, I, um, if we just tap into that, we, like, I know there's this old thing of like, oh, I need to go do this to be happy, or I need this person, or I need this. It's like, that is just a never ending game, and then as soon as you shift it back inside and you're like, whoa, what's in here? Whoa. The camera's like shifting as I like, it's just like, whoa. Whoa, that's a whole nother world, but it's the same world, because we know from this holographic universe physics model of reality that everything outside of us is the same inside. So if we're desperately seeking something outside of us, just turn it around and go inside and look for that same thing. And you're like, oh, it was right here all along. Then we can manifest it in the real world once we've tapped into where that particle or that quantum pixel exists within us. Because it's like, again, talking when you talk about loved ones passed on, they're still in us, right? Like if you want to just, they're in this reality, they are inside of us, like a pixel of light, because every pixel of light outside of us has like a mirror pixel inside of us. This is, for me, once my worldview shifted this way, it just made so much sense. And I didn't even need anyone to tell me. It's like, it's already so obvious that once you get to a certain level of just wanting to feel one with all that is, really just wanting to feel the harmony and peace and bliss that comes, like, there's no problems when everything is just one. How can anything be wrong? Like, everything's perfect all the time. And this is the 0 point. This is the 0 point field. And as we get these free energy generators going, which we're going to be doing soon, and I'm determined to find the people that know how to do this and learn from them and do it. And then the power grid starts paying us because it's going in the opposite direction. That is what, tapping into that ether, that 0 point, the level of reality where everything is one, and extracting the, limitless energy that's available to us from that. So it's a very exciting time to be human. I think everything, all of our clothes, everything is going to be remodeled, reworked to support our life. And I feel great all the time. Like, not all the time, of course, things happen.
Oh, yeah.
But on the whole, it's like a new chapter for me. For me, it's a total new chapter in my life. And working with the technology as actually a learning tool for our own capabilities. These are like trainers. These are like training wheels, because you start working, just learning about the Therapy, or how these, technologies work. Then you start to see your whole world differently. And then when we can tap into it through our pineal gland, then we realize, oh yeah, I don't even need the device anymore. That was just like, but it's a great teaching tool, learning tool, practice tool, helping people remember on a physical level how to go into that state of relaxation so that they get better and better at it. And then they're just finding themselves on their couch, and they've done the therapy sessions, but then they're, oh, okay, I'm just going to sit and just enjoy this moment because they practiced it. Part of it's just being present, and just, and I mean, it's really all part of it. That's really all it is. It's really being present in the moment, in the now, so we can be connected to that pixel in our heart and expressing our beingness from that place of perfection, that I do see it as the octahedron, like the seed of our identity that is fractaling out from the one infinite source creator. So well, I feel like that was that might about wrap it up. My throat chakra is telling, it's a pleasant feeling, but it's the feeling like when you're talking with your best friends all night and you're like, oh, it's a good kind of tired, you know what I mean? I'm so honored to meet you and talk to you, and I'm looking forward to playing some of the episodes, like more of the content on your channel, and really learning from you and the experts that you're bringing on. It's just really grateful for the work you're doing, and grateful to anyone out there listening to this. I'm always like, really, there's people that care. So yeah, I sometimes I even forget, but yeah, I'm so honored and just grateful when anyone is interested in similar topics, so that we can just have fun together, learning about this stuff. Oh, well, we should definitely do this again and stay in touch. And you're definitely, this is one tribe. I'm excited. Like, you joined the tribe before I did, so you've been following this work for a while. So I feel like, hi, thanks for letting me in your tribe. I love it. I love it here.
Okay.
All right, great. Okay, well,
day.
stay in touch. Yeah, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Okay, take care. Bye.